All right, welcome back. We're back with part two. We finished up talking about almost every match from night two. We're here with the main event as well as all the other news that followed WrestleMania and sort of a mini discussion of what we think about like the differences between night one and two. And it is here that I'll bring up my main criticism that was definitely felt more during night two. But as we were sort of discussing in part one of this two-part episode about night two, there's somewhat of a excusable reason, but also at the same time, I just feel like it was more tedious and annoying. Night two for me was very annoying because of the fact that it just felt like it was purposely trying to drag on plenty of times. Like we were purposely being hit with all these ads and all these like packages of videos to like really delay stuff. And to me it felt most present at this point because while we said in the first part that it definitely felt like Edge and Finn's time got cut because of the injury. Like instead of just like quickly maybe showing some ads and then doing the video package and going straight to Roman Cody, it was like it felt like we sat there for almost like 20-25 minutes of just ads and video packages of other stuff that wasn't even for the main event, and it was just like it felt so present throughout the night where it's like we just kept having to sit there between matches to listen to all these different ads. And it was especially most annoying when for some of the matches when you wanted to be given a like video package to sort of give you the story of what's leading up to this match, WWE comes in and goes, we have a video package for our Peacock Premium subscribers only, so the rest of you have to sit through these ads that you don't even want to see.
Dang.
Yeah, so that was my main issue with night two, more so than night one. Night one obviously had its fair share of ads that annoyed me as well, and having to sit through there, like that's the one thing that annoyed me, especially because obviously it's different because we were there in person, but it's annoying when you compare it to other wrestling pay-per-views and you just go straight from one to the other, Like, I remember when we were going to go to Super Card of Honor on Friday, I told Dom, there's going to be a difference between what we experienced when we went to AEW back in January and this one. AEW was a weekly show, so they take into account commercial breaks. And, I was like, that's why a lot of times you saw the ring announcers get in there and talk to the crowd and all that to buy time in between breaks. This is a pay-per-view, which means we're going straight through. You may get a video package for the upcoming match, but there's going to be no breaks. So, like, it was very annoying to have to go from something like that to having to sit through a pay-per-view night like this with all these ad breaks in between it.
My buddy I took to a Super Card of Honor noticed exactly that. He's like, oh, we're going from one match to the other, huh? I said, yes, that's right, buddy. We on pay-per-view. And so I definitely agree with you, sir, that the ads and the commercials really, really affected my enjoyment of WrestleMania both nights. There was a gosh darn Cinnamon Toast Crunch piece outside the ring for Ray's match.
Yeah.
But I think another thing that really weighs down night two that didn't happen in night one is how many sort of accidents happened that sort of, people had to adjust for. Finn's injury, Shane's injury. I think if Finn doesn't get hurt and they have the whole match that they intended, Edge wins. I think if Shane doesn't get injured and he, wrestles that match competently with The Miz, I think people think of night two in a better light. And Asuka still doesn't win. And, Brock's match is still short. And the women's match, maybe if Ronda also wasn't as hurt, and she had more of a presence in the match, it would have, people would have remembered it more fondly. Oh, yeah, she really beat up a whole lot of people instead of, oh, she really just walked in and stole the victory, right?
Yeah, especially because I remember in night one, I felt the same thing when between Rhea and Charlotte and the tag main event, it was like, it came off to me as like, they're really trying to push this so that it ends at a certain time, which it ended up ending, I think, for LA time, like around like 8:30. And
Yeah.
like a part of me read that to like, man, they were really trying to see if they can push this as far as they can, you know. And it felt
Yeah,
the
and you
same
know
with
what
Night
else?
Two.
You know what else Night 2 was like suffering from? It had one less match on it than Night 1. You know,
Yeah,
like they didn't do any, like you had a whole night, you know, you had an extra day to like figure out something, right? Like they
Bobby
literally,
Lashley.
I'm just saying, put him
He
up against anybody.
he mentioned an open challenge, and all he did on Night Two was come out with the trophy.
Hey, hello. You've got a roster of people to feed him to. You know what I mean? Like, or feed to him. It could have been LA Knight. Why wasn't LA Knight on WrestleMania in LA?
Yeah, and
Just saying.
it's funny.
Oh, and you know what? I bet Lashley Wyatt probably would have been on this night.
Yeah, definitely.
And they've done this before. Like when a match doesn't happen, instead of like replacing it, they just don't do it. And you're like, well, I guess that this means that the night's going to end about 20 minutes earlier than it would have.
Yeah, and it's funny to see like this just distinction in time, like them trying to kill time and push time forward versus it was funny because before the Brock Omos match, because like you said, Brock's either the first match or the last match on the card, and when he's done, he gets out of there as quick as he can. Like I saw someone make a joke, they were like, Brock's private jet is probably still parked outside, and he told the pilot, just wait here, this will only last a couple minutes. And funny enough, after his match ends, they show like a pan of SoFi outside, and you see a plane flying by.
It probably takes the plane a really long time to warm up, so he's just like, keep the engine running.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a Metallica show that we went to. You know where Coachella is held?
Uh-huh.
That same space, they had this really big metal concert. Metallica's the last on the show. They're notoriously late. Like, you know what I mean? Like, all the time. And the crowd's waiting for them. It's like 9 o'clock at night, and you just see this random helicopter fly behind the stage, and you go, that might be them.
Oh, man.
That really might be them busting a Ric Flair.
Oh, man. But, unlike WWE, we'll get right to the main event right now, which I think you brought it up in the Night 1 episode, so I'll bring it up again. Similar to the Rey Mysterio match, was plagued with a forced ad, and that was Intuit TurboTax being the ad sponsor, where anytime they did a replay, it was like you would see it, or Michael Cole would throw in a line about, doing your taxes and everything, and it's just like, why do we have this for such a serious main event?
Can you imagine if Hogan and Andre had in the corner of the screen while they were having their epic encounter an H&R Block ad? Can you imagine Brett versus Shawn, WrestleMania 12 for 60 minutes, brought to you by Captain Crunch? Who are you going for, Captain?
I think I made the comment that I was like, this show has more ads than a NASCAR.
Dang, that's the next. Well, you know what they do, Jack, in the UFC is they just wear those brands right on their shorts, like they're the hood of the car.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go. That's what's next. Let's do this. Hey, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. We're gonna finish the story, Jack. Roman Reigns is out here with Solo and Paul Heyman and a bunch of pianos.
So real quick, yeah, we get this extravagant entrance, and it's funny. For whatever reason, us talking about this just popped into my mind. You said you were going to ask us about what we thought were the best and worst entrants, and I was telling my dad earlier because he called me to talk about Night 1. He was like, I was waiting for you guys to talk about that, and I told him, oh, well, we were likely waiting for, to finish up talking about Night 2 so we can have all the entrances. But for whatever reason, I blanked out on what my worst entrance was, but I remembered. It's not the Roman entrance, but I remember, so I'm hoping to continue to remember when we talk about it. But yeah, Roman comes out with this extravagant entrance. And the funniest thing, he comes out with this extravagant entrance, but he's still wearing the same old gear. Usually when people, especially when it comes to Mania, they'll change it up. They'll throw on a different color. Drew came out with white this time, which is something common for people to do for Mania. Because, I don't know, it's weird. When it comes to big time events, a lot of people uh, gravitate towards white, you know.
Yeah, I hear you. I can picture that too. Rollins at SummerSlam 2016.
Yeah, HBK against Undertaker at WrestleMania 25.
Whoa, that was like light versus dark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so it was funny because people were like, "Is Roman gonna do something?" And then like I think like he posted an image or like he said something like, "I'm not doing no extravagant gear. I just need to be me." And I was like, "Okay, buddy."
Yeah, right.
We're too good
Cody
for
Rhodes
gear.
comes out with all the pyro in the world and a weightlifting belt. I don't know if you knew, Jack, that had the names of every indie promotion inside that he worked while he was gone. And he usually gives it to a child at ringside. We go to the behind the commentators where we see Brandy and their baby, and she's adorable, and she was wearing earphones, but she didn't need them. She was looking dad. And who does he give the weightlifting belt to, Jack?
I instantly recognized him, Brody Lee Jr.
I was bawling.
Yeah, I immediately recognized it. I was like, "Oh." And my dad was like, "What?" I'm like, "That's Brody Lee Jr." I was like,
-1.
Yeah, I saw his wife post that they were at the show, but when she posted it, it looked like they were up in the suite, so it was very much a surprise to see him down there, and I was like, "Oh, that's real sweet."
You know, I bet they were up there for. I wonder if they were behind the commentators the whole night, or if that's maybe where they were for most of the night.
Yeah, but yeah, that was real nice, especially because
I was scared, Jack. Now that I know that they're ringside, I'm like, they better not do nothing to that baby or Brandy or that kid.
Yeah, same. And then it was just nice, like, explaining to my dad, that the two things I explained to him was that he actually has a contract with AEW already, and that when he turns 18, he has a certified contract there with AEW. And then I was explaining to him, the reason, it like means a lot, and that he's so close with Cody is that Big E and Cody were the two that went down to comfort him, like in the final moments of his dad's passing. Like they met him at his hotel room, and the family's hotel room, to be there for him. So I was like, this is a real cool moment for him to be there and to give that to him.
He at ringside while Cody vanquishes the head of the table. Maybe.
Well, let's get into the match. What did you think about it, sir?
It was good. It was a really heavy-hitting match. Cody looked strong throughout the match. And you know what? We got some early solo interference. Like tripping him up, or attacking him outside.
Yeah.
I don't know. The mostly stoic Solo is kind of surprising to see him be such an active participant in this match. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So much so that the ref catches on to what's going on and goes, "You out of here!" to the delight of everyone in the arena.
Yeah. And so that leaves the match for him to fight, quote unquote, alone.
Oh, goodness.
Well, we all know what Roman's matches are like.
Ah!
It was funny because Ricardo was in attendance for this show, and I was like,
"Oh, that's right."
Yeah, and I told him, I'm like, "I wonder what you're going to do." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "What are you going to do for those 20 minutes when Roman's, monologuing? What are you going to do for those 20 minutes of a match when Roman's monologuing to the camera and you can't hear what's going on and you won't know why the match is stopped for 20 minutes straight?"
What are you talking about?
When Roman, he'll be attacking a guy and he's talking to the camera and monologuing. So I was saying, I wonder what you're going to do.
That's what I thought you were talking about. You're talking about, you think he does that a lot?
He does that a lot.
He said he had a lot more to say to Jay or Sammy. He's, you know what I mean? I trusted you. You don't know family. I don't remember him saying too much to Cody except, I guess, you ain't ready or something.
He heard the criticism, so he toned it back. Oh, speaking of amount of time Roman spends, everyone, including my brother, dad, and I, we were cracking jokes essentially by going. We were talking about betting, and we were like, "What's the over under on how long it takes him to get to the ring?"
Oof! What a bet!
Yeah,
What
and
a
then
prop bet.
yeah, and then it was funny because I told my dad, I'm like, I know the stage isn't long, but what's the over under on him just making his way down the ramp itself, not even getting into
Uh-huh.
the ring fully, just the ramp itself. Someone timed it. It took him 7 minutes to get down to the ring.
I was gonna say the over under must be like 4.
Yeah, but the match itself, I thought it was very good. I definitely liked how, when it came to the solo stuff, it was like you kind of saw like even though Roman was getting like the advantage at some point, it was like you could tell from the start like Cody was getting the best of him, and that's why Solo had to start interfering.
I
And
agree.
I really liked that. And then afterwards, it's like even then it was like Roman was still trying a lot, but Rhodes was still getting the best of him.
Yeah, and like I don't know if we're getting too ahead of ourselves, right? Because it was a very standard affair. We were hitting all our signature spots. I believe our ref takes the old bump, doesn't he?
Yeah. And I think my only issue with this one was this one looked significantly weaker than all the previous ones. Because I
Oh,
think
for sure.
like this one, I think it was like I think he got maybe super kicked. I forget what it was, but like it definitely looked. Oh yeah, he kicks the ref, but like it felt so weak,
Yeah.
and like the way the ref sold it, like it came off like I said weaker than previous times. Like at least in other times it's like the ref got caught between them when Roman was getting driven into the turnbuckle, or he got
Uh-huh.
hit with a Superman punch or a spear or a
Yeah.
Sami Zayn kick, whatever it was. This one, it was like he got kicked, and the way he just like sold it and fell, was like that one didn't look too well. So that's why it made the ensuing chaos like less impactful to me, because it was like for how he got hit, he shouldn't be down this long.
I get you. I 100% get you. But he's down, and I go, he's down. What's Paul gonna do something? Solo ascent to the back. Who else has he got? Well, he's got a couple of Usos, doesn't he, Jack? They come out. Doesn't look worse for wear. They just lost the giant match the night before. And you know what? I guess I took for granted, Jack. I was like, oh gosh, the island relevancy is pretty intact, isn't it? Like, you know what I mean? Like they came to Roman's help. They're still on Roman's side. This looks bad. I'm already seeing the writing on the wall.
Yeah, and this is the one part I'll give them credit to when it comes to this whole story, that I think it's probably what you noticed. They didn't interact with Roman.
They didn't.
Like at no point did Roman get up and direct traffic to them. It's like they did it all on their own, and they were out of there before Roman even had a chance to say anything to them, which really plays up like this story of like we're still waiting to see what Roman's reaction is going to be to them losing the titles.
And you know what? They don't sort of just leave on their own. Kevin and Sammy come out and help clean house. So Cody's not alone. He doesn't have an island, but those guys still, I guess want to see justice being served. And Sammy gets his haluva kick on Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
I thought that was it, Jack. They had me hooked, line, and sinker, and it wasn't. And it wasn't. So now we've seen Solo get kicked out. We've seen the Usos be driven out by Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and I'm wondering, Jack, for the first time this entire build to WrestleMania, I'm wondering, is The Rock going to come out?
Oh, man.
Is The Rock really going to come out and do something about this?
Yeah, no lie. But it's not enough, is it, sir?
It's not.
Even after, hitting his father's jabs and bionic elbow, even after hitting him with Dustin's move where he gets him down and he lands on the floor and punches up,
Right.
I forget what they call that one. He hits 2 crossroads.
He does.
He decides to go for a third, and as he's going for the third, Paul Heyman is distracting the ref, and Solo Sikoa comes back, hits him with the Samoan spike. Roman hits a spear, and shockingly, Roman wins and Cody loses.
Not just a spear, that supercharged one where he doesn't bounce off just one set of ropes, he bounces off of 2. for more impact. And not to the surprise of no one, because my dad knew Roman was winning all along.
Yeah. The way I put it to my dad, I was like, would I be disappointed if Cody lost? No. Would I be shocked if Cody lost? No. Because I know this company. So I was very much in the same boat of like, I had no doubt in my mind that if this company wanted Roman to retain, they would let him. And like I said to you before, I had no problems with it like before. Like, does it like annoy me in the sense of like, man, that doesn't really make too much sense to me not to go with Cody in the biggest like event of the year? Yeah, somewhat. But I don't let it have no emotional hold on me because I do not let this company have that hold over me no more.
Golly.
I just view it casually.
I'm really getting there, Jack. I was affected. It took some time though. I had to do some like soul searching, and I realized, well, he still has them Usos on his side. You know, they still came out there were like a difference maker. You know what I mean? Mm. And I go, and can Cody really win the big one on his first shot at it? You know what I mean? Like, they've been building him up, and they build him up real well. But I think, does it make sense? Like, does it cause any unintended consequences for Cody to win the big one that quick, right? Like, I think the more realistic story is it takes more than one shot to take down the big dog. Like,
I think Damian Priest could have beaten the big dog.
Marco had one line to say, and that's the line he said. Damian Priest with his trimmed beard and eyebrows.
But yeah, like that's what like my main thing was like I saw people immediately trying to like in a sense cope with the fact that Cody lost, and they were like,
yeah, you got to try to rationalize it, right?
Yeah, and they were like, oh well, he can't win it yet. This just adds to the chase and all that, and he could win it at SummerSlam.
I saw people compare him to John Cena in 2012.
Oh, when he lost to The Rock?
Correct. And he's just, he's gonna start at the bottom and start to climb up. And you know what, too? He's getting the big reactions, right? He's selling a bunch of merch, and I'll tell you what, I'm not against the idea of looking to see if that's like spark in the pan or if that's long lasting,
Yeah. And like people were saying like so I will be fair, because I know people are quick to be like, well, you're just hating on WWE and all that. So here's my thing for the both sides. Yeah. Do I think Cody can remain consistent till like SummerSlam, and keep that fan investment with whatever adversity they want to throw at him, which is looking to be similar to like the John Cena path where, it's like he's going to face Brock Lesnar next, presumably at Backlash, and he's going to overcome the Beast. And then I don't know what they throw at him after that, like in June, July, until we get to SummerSlam in August. But like, I think Cody can do it, especially if this company does it properly. But there's still a part of me that worries that, this is not striking when the iron's hot. Because I saw some people be like, oh, well, it was predictable if he would have won it. But, like, predictable isn't always a bad thing, Like, it doesn't come off as a bad thing. And the only reason I worry about him maintaining this momentum is because I've seen it happen many times in wrestling where they don't strike when the iron's hot because they think they can continue pushing it off and do this whole thing of more adversity. Yep. And it doesn't happen. And the biggest example I saw of... Now, this one's a bit more of a drastic comparison because they took way too long to strike while the iron was hot. But you remember Naito in 2018?
I sure do.
When he challenged Okada at Wrestle Kingdom, and he lost, and they didn't capitalize on Naito's momentum until 2 years later in 2020.
Like, yeah, and where they put their you know what bet they did take? It was with Ibushi, and how's that working out for you, New Japan? Right? If you
Yeah.
look at Naito, that guy's still there. The guy could have, I think done a lot of good in the main event
Yeah.
scene.
And not only that, it was during a time when, he still had knees. He wasn't like Muto out here with no
Oh
knees.
my goodness!
Like that was his peak. And obviously, am I here going to say that I think WWE is going to not capitalize on Cody Rhodes until like 2 years? No, but the reason I bring up that comparison is because I worry that, like how you're saying, was this a flash in the pan of the fans being behind him? Like, could we somehow see a scenario where they think they can hold it off till like SummerSlam, and then at SummerSlam when he wins it, it wouldn't have been the same reaction as this night, if he had done it.
Yeah, I agree, Jack. Well, you know what though, and me still sort of like recovering from Sunday night. Cody didn't win. Cody could win later, but you know who else could still be the one to dethrone the head of the table, the tribal chief? Old buddy Sami Zayn still has a shot at doing it.
Yeah,
We're going to look and see that in May and June, he's still super over, and he could be the one. He can still and always be the one.
Yeah. We've seen double champions before.
I'm just saying.
But
Money in the Bank is happening in the UK, right?
Yeah.
Let's go. Make some magic happen.
Yeah, that I think
Who
that's
else? Let's think of like 5 people who could feasibly do it. You got
think
Cody, you got Sammy.
Yeah.
You got Jay. Jay could do it.
Yeah, Jay could do it for storyline reasons, but I don't know. It's not to discredit the guy. It's not to play down him as a performer. But I just wonder, could he elevate himself to that level to justify that? The story justifies it, but
on Raw, were the Usos around? No, huh?
I don't think so.
So we still haven't heard Roman run them down or belittle them for losing their titles.
I think I heard they had like a segment where they tried to go to Roman and Paul Heyman instead talked to them.
Ooh.
So who knows? I don't know. A lot of people seem to support the Jey Uso just because that's how this whole thing started,
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's just a part of me that I almost feel unfair in it because I don't want to doubt, tag guys being able to elevate themselves to the main event scene because we've seen it a lot. But I don't know. To me, at least personally, nothing from Jay signals to me that it could be the best choice in a sense. I think it is a choice. I just don't know if I can firmly say it's the best choice for them to go with.
Well, and I think if it's Jay too, right? What beat Cody? The whole family, right? What beat Sammy? Roman beat him pretty handily, but everyone who's come up against Roman has had to fight the whole family. What if it's Jay, right? And then whose side is Jimmy on? Whose side is Solo on? I just think that creates the rift that I think is needed to beat Roman once and for all.
Yeah. And then, really, outside of those 3, what other choices would you have, that make sense storyline-wise? Because you can name other challengers for him, but do they come off as, reasonable challengers, we've still yet to see him face Bobby Lashley in a match, but, what sense would it make if Lashley were to beat him? That would just be completely out of right field.
Right. No. You've got time to tell the story. But, yeah, you got to start from square one with somebody.
Yeah. And this is just...
LA Knight. It's going to be LA Knight. Yeah. Let me talk to you.
Yeah. What's it called? The one thing I want to say, though, because while I'm being nice to people, I'm not going to be nice here. To the delusional fans who think Roman should hold it till next Mania, you are not thinking straight and properly.
Stop it.
We do not have... The only way we would have enough challengers and way to really stretch this story is because Roman takes months off at a time at this point.
Hey, did you see the press conference after night 2?
No, I didn't get a chance to.
I bring it up for 2 reasons. One, I think I said it on the last episode. I hate those press conferences because no one asks the right question. They all ask variants of the same question, and it's always dumb. I wish somebody had asked them, hey, when are we splitting the 2 belts? Are we ever splitting the 2 belts? What's the future hold for this company as far as having 1 champion versus 2? Because we thought this big change this weekend was going to be the catalyst for that. And it looks like we're still stuck with somebody who's holding them both hostage. No. But I bring it up a second because Nick Hausman, do you know who he is?
No.
He's a reporter for WrestleZone, and he wanted to talk about the sale, right? Like, news had broke on Sunday even about the sale, and he goes, can either of you speak on it? He's talking to Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns gives an incredible answer. He goes, listen, I just fought one of your favorites to the limit and beat him, just like I said I was. So that's all I got to say about anything, right? And Paul, this is what he says. He goes, hey, this one has a habit of, what did he say? This one has a habit of starting trouble at press conferences. And he's referring to the fact that Nick Hausman is the one who asked the question to CM Punk that set him off in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and everyone's laughing because he goes, this one has a real habit of starting trouble.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, these press conferences, like how you're saying, like, they rarely ask, like, the questions, like, you want to hear, like, even if they're a bit offsetting, to the talent.
Yeah.
Like, you want to hear them ask these, but instead, we're getting questions like asking the 2 most family-centered guys in Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, hey, how are you going to celebrate your championship win? What do you think they're going to tell you?
I'm going to go out of the town. I'm going to go to, Disneyland. I don't know. I'm going to go back to my hotel. I'm tired. This day has been exhausting.
Yeah.
Like my child. Hey, here's the question that I want to know and the people want to know. What was your favorite entrance? And what was your least favorite entrance, Jack?
Favorite entrance is real difficult because, like, I'm really trying to think of, like, who had, like, standout entrances to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I want to say, I think Asuka's was pretty cool where she came out with all the doubles. Sammy and KO didn't really do anything special that I remember because they're very simple guys. I think they even mentioned that, like, they're simple, straight to it, like,
yep.
They, I think I'll probably say Asuka because that's the only one that's really coming to mind. Either that or Gunther.
I was going to say Gunther for my own answer, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to hear, now that I remembered it when we were talking earlier, what my worst one was?
Please.
The worst entrance of the night, solely because of WWE's annoying overproduction at times, was Seth Rollins. Because
really?
They brought out that conductor
to have
the crowd sing, and they still added in piped-in noise of the crowd singing, mixed in with the regular crowd singing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that was the only reason I disliked it so much, because I was like, what are we doing here? What's the point of having this conductor come out to conduct the live crowd if you're just gonna play over it? And then plus, the way they did it, it's like the crowd at first didn't know what they were supposed to be doing until they played the music, and then they were like, oh yeah, the Seth Rollins chant that we do. And then anytime they tried to do it and get it in order, it's like they couldn't get it done, and it was only made worse by them playing like the song, like the audio levels to me were just completely mixed terribly, because it was like the song was louder than the people, and so they had to add in these piped in like noise of like when the crowds have done it previously, and it just sounded mixed like so awfully. Seth Rollins himself making the normal entrance was fine, like
right.
It's typical Rollins the way he comes out, especially with his wacky attire. But that first portion to me just came off as like the worst of the night, because it was so overproduced, and audibly it was like a mess. Like it was a mess hearing all that mixing and none of it being mixed well.
I hear you, and I 100% agree. overproduce is an incredibly succinct way of describing it. And overproduce, I think, can also apply to my answer for my least favorite entrance of the night. And it might surprise you. It's Rey Mysterio. Listen, he's out to fight his son in this blood feud. He's defending the honor of his wife and his role as a dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also we're going to come out with Snoop Dogg. We're also going to come out to Eddie's music, and I'm also going to be wearing a Great Muta reference mask. You know what I mean? Like, he's just having too much fun for the sake of the feud. And I think, too, on the weekend where we're honoring him as a new inductee into the Hall of Fame, I want it to be 100% Rey Mysterio. You know what I mean? He's always referencing comic book characters and heroes and things, but he's the hero, right? What's he referencing Muta for?
Yeah.
You know, be you. Why is he out there with Snoop Dogg? Be you. Why is he playing Eddie's music? Yeah, listen, I'm going to say a thing. It's going to be real insensitive. The man's been gone for like 17 years. Stop.
I think it would have made more sense, like if you were going to do the Eddie music, it would have made more sense for Dom to come out to it, to really rub it in Ray's face.
To rub it in Los Angeles' face? Oh, how bad would it have been? He would have needed those cops to be standing next to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like Ray was just trying to do too much. And, you know, I think it's a lot of deflecting. Ray, be the spotlight. Be the guy we all wanted you to be for just tonight, you know?
Yeah.
Muta is an old man that nobody knows. Snoop Dogg ain't even a wrestler. I love that line from from night one where he tells Miz, "Handle your business." He goes, "You a fighter, I rap."
Oh man, yeah. But that wraps up both nights of Mania. But there's still the post-Mania news, which, as you mentioned, WWE and I mentioned it too. WWE has officially been sold to Endeavor, who also owns the UFC. And it worries people, especially me as well. Not for, like, some of the reasons that they think, but, like, so I know WWE's still locked into their Peacock deal for a couple years. But the one thing that I was hearing from a bunch of people when this sale happened was, well, the UFC does a pay-per-view format still, where they sell these pay-per-views at full prices. And Nick Khan himself has said they were still thinking about, you know, could they go back to that format, you know, like of charging, you know, like, well, back in the day it was like $50-$60 per pay-per-view. And the moment I heard that, I was like, I told my dad, I was like, hey, I know you enjoy the content, I enjoy coming on here with Mr. Solis to talk about it, but if they start charging some $50-$60 per pay-per-view, that's all, folks. You know, like Looney Tunes ending. That's all, folks. This is our finale, you know?
Yeah. You know, I heard the same thing, Jack, and it's got me shook, too. This may be the end of a wild ride we both have been on for a while. Because, you know, all that talk about, like, what that company has done for UFC as far as generating income, right? Or generating, you know, revenue. It's all any of those guys think and talk about. It's why any of this happens. Their goal is always, how much money can we make and how do we make more? They always take a big step back on a quarterly basis and they wonder, here's how much money we made. How can we make more? I don't think, and what's frustrating about that, and Disney does it too, all of our favorite, you know, IPs and companies do this all the time. What, you know, why fix what isn't broken? Because to them it is, because they're not making as much money as they want to. But then they'll never define how much they want to. It's always, how can we make more money than the last quarter? So we might go back to $60 pay-per-views. I would love to think that means that there isn't a big giant Cinnamon Toast Crunch guy at ringside, but also it might be there's more Cinnamon Toast Crunch people at ringside.
Yeah,
I'd love to think that means the quality of these shows are maybe better, but there's absolutely no guarantee of that either.
Yeah, and
I hope I hope these guys are really looking at the numbers. Like, golly, this many people are watching our weekly shows. This many people are watching on Peacock, right? And like, the conversation could go one of two ways. It can either be, how do we get more people to do that, or how can we get as much money as we can out of the people that do that? Not you and me, Jack. And your dad.
Yeah, and I mean, they really should look at the internet in this sense, because the fact that your fans themselves refer to some of these pay-per-views as B-level pay-per-views should tell you some of these people aren't going to be willing to pay no $50-$60 for one of those mid-year pay-per-views that not much is going to happen on, you know? Like, obviously anything could happen on these shows, but how accustomed are we to the fact that nothing ever happens on these mid-level shows, and the only reason we tune in is because it's cheaper nowadays, you know? Like, and it was funny because the one comment I saw that I really enjoyed a lot, I told my dad, was someone said, "Man, there goes WWE making me feel like a child again." And in parentheses, they put, "not being able to afford pay-per-views."
Ah, the good old days. We've been there before. Goodness.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll mention here that, like, it'll almost, in a sense, even though I have, like, no ties to, like, WWE anymore, you know, like, especially, like, as a major fan, in a sense, you know, like we've said, we don't watch the weekly shows. You and I tune in on a pay-per-view to pay-per-view basis. So to me, if they were to implement something like this, it makes me, like, a tiny bit sad that, like, you know, like how I just mentioned, it's been a part of my childhood for a very long time. Even though I've taken breaks at times from wrestling, I've always found my way back to it, you know? And so, if they were to go back to this format of $50, $60 pay-per-views, that completely eliminates them from my involvement with them, you know? Because I don't tune into their weekly shows. I rarely even look at the highlights anymore. The only time I really see it is people who post, like, the results, maybe, that still watch it. Other than the PLEs, that's all I'm tuning in for. And so, you eliminate that, I'm not tuning into WWE in any way, shape, or form, you know? And,
how much time we got left?
On this episode, 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
I'll use 50 to say, Jack, there is a fraction of people watching professional wrestling on a global scale today than were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that, you know, to get back any of those people who watched 20 years ago, you got to do something more than charge more.
Yeah, especially like how I've seen people say, in this economy, you ain't getting people to pay no $50-$60 for a pay-per-view. The only reason people do it for AEW, and I mentioned this in a video I did once, the only reason I always feel, like, not always, but sometimes feel inclined to do it, is because they're only like 4 or 5 times a year, you know, 5 now including like Forbidden Door, and I only really do it when they get me invested or like get me to buy into a show, like All Out 2021 when CM Punk returned, Full Gear 2021 when Hangman won the title, and Revolution this year because they got me at the last second. Like, I don't know what it was. Like, at the last second, I just said, let me just check out this show, and I really enjoyed it. So it's like, because they do less, I'm more inclined to spend that money. But WWE isn't looking to do that less matter because they're trying to maximize their profits. And real quickly,
you and me, we coming in with a growth mindset. We gonna wait and see, but we ain't gonna be phased by whatever happens.
Yeah, and with a minute 20, the last thing I'll say, also because I've heard like a couple of things about the company that's bought them, makes me a bit worried for the talent, because if they're gonna be worrying about money again, it makes me worried because, you know, we've reached a point where, like, the way someone phrased it, Tony Khan can't save everyone, you know, even though he has Ring of Honor and AEW, both are filling up pretty quickly. He can't save everyone, and, you know, while the independents are slowly rebuilding and there's Japan and Mexico, you know, it's kind of getting back to that point where it's like there's not that many viable options outside the two big companies because the second company is already filling up with both its shows.
Sure is. It certainly is.
But like you said, going in with an optimistic sort of mindset of just hoping for the best, but we aren't going to be phased. Like I said, if they go to that 50-60 format, it's been a good run, folks. But we'll likely see you for Backlash because, again, it's still going to probably be on Peacock unless things change. But I've been Jack, joined by...
Yes, sir, Solis, who's going to watch Joshi Pro Wrestling if it means that me and Jack get to still talk about something.
Thank you all for this episode, and we'll see y'all in the next one.